The first diuretic probably isn't what you're thinking. And to tell that story, we have to start with syphilis. Yes, syphilis. This is pre-antibiotic syphilis. You know, the old-timey pictures that you see with lesions on people's faces with their nose and the ears disintegrating is a brutal disease. That's syphilis. And this case actually involves the case of congenital syphilis, i.e. a syphilis that is transmitted from mother to baby during pregnancy. It significantly shortened their lifespan, frequently leading to death in early childhood. Life was brutal. So going back to 1919, Vienna, Austria, when a young girl was admitted to the first medical university clinic in Vienna. She had congenital syphilis with juvenile taves, where she had the inability to walk. The syphilis is involved in the spinal cord. She was emaciated to the bones with irregular pupils and absent reflexes. She had persistent vomiting, diarrhea, and severe muscle weakness. The author of the paper described the patient as not an interesting case. The diagnosis was clearly self-evident. She was admitted by her home physician who noticed she was becoming too sick to be cared for and there wasn't much to do. And the medical student actually wrote in the paper, the only question was, what therapy would satisfy the referring practitioner and also enable us to most quickly discharge the patient? This was written in a clinical paper. Can you imagine this? He noted the diarrhea was shared by almost everyone in post-war Austria. Everyone was starved and having diarrhea, so that was not unusual. He was tasked, therefore, of giving the only known treatment for syphilis at the time, which is intramuscular mercury. Long story short, they only had the injectable form, and that's what was given. A side note that's important is that there's a new generation of nurses who are ambitious, inspired, and with good educational backgrounds and training that the medical student noticed. They took pride in making beautiful charts and made graphs with different colors for different bodily fluids. This is critical to the story. So it's a new cultural change in the nursing staff in this hospital, well-trained, well-educated nurses, and they took pride in their work. A blue column, for example, was made for measuring urine output. A brown column was, another output. On the day of the mercury injection, the girl's urine output at baseline was 300 cc's a day. And then after the mercury injection, her urine output went to 1,200 cc's. So the blue column was very long. The next day, no injection was given, and the urine output remained low, around 200, 300 cc's. The following day, however, she got an injection of mercury again, and lo and behold, the urine increased to 2,000 cc's. After this, even all the other doctors around them started paying attention to the medical student. And they tried the same thing on a quote-unquote large man, a cab driver with syphilitic disease and advanced congestive failure, where his heart wasn't pumping enough, and he was already having fluid build up throughout his body. The medical student says this indeed was the ideal case for the experimentium crucis. After the injection of mercury, the patient passed a massive amount of almost colorless urine. The next morning, the man had eliminated 10 liters of fluid. We were convinced that we had witnessed the greatest man-made diuresis in history. They wondered if the diuresis was from the antisyphilitic effect, maybe something to do with the mercury killing the syphilis, triggering the diuresis. So they experimented again. Another young boy was admitted with heart failure, this time from rheumatic fever, with severe tricuspid insufficiency. This was the case without syphilis. And the same thing was done. The patient was very volume overloaded, so again, they gave him mercury. And the boy, unfortunately, died. But the medical student said very excitedly, before he died, he passed 3 liters. So mercury was used for intramuscular diuresis for decades without really knowing how it worked. But not surprisingly, mercury had some problems. Stories of hemorrhagic colitis began to circulate with mercury, altered mental status. We all know mercury is not good for you. A textbook in 1948 on the history of heart and circulation notes mercury was, quote-unquote, a discovery that has completely revolutionized the treatment of congestive heart failure. Also, despite sounding quite cold in this paper explaining what happened, the medical student did give credit to the nurse who took meticulous measurements and plotted them so well, and he was actually able to visualize that massive urine output, which he says he probably wouldn't have noticed without the nurse's help. So bravo to the nurse, but also I didn't realize that mercury actually had such a major impact in the early 20th century medicine and helping people with heart failure pass lots of urine to get fluid off their body. So thanks for listening. Hope you found that interesting. Take a listen to Mechanism of Action, where I dig through the history of the first diuretics.